The scavenger's warning. The stars had always whispered secrets to those who knew how to listen. Captain Elena Vasquez had spent 30 years learning their language, but nothing had prepared her for the message she was about to receive. The exploration. Vessel Aurora Dawn drifted through the Veil Nebula, its sensors sweeping empty space for anything unusual. Elena stood on the bridge, her weathered hands clasped behind her back as she watched the cosmic dust swirl outside the viewports. At 55, she commanded one of humanity's most advanced deep space vessels, tasked with pushing the boundaries of known space. "Captain, I'm picking up something odd," called out Lieutenant Marcus Torres from his station. The young officer's fingers danced across his console. "Energy signature doesn't match anything in our database." Elena moved to stand behind him. "Could it be natural phenomena?" "Negative, ma'am. It's too regular. Almost like—" Torres paused, double-checking his readings. "Like a distress beacon, but the frequency is all wrong." "Distance?" 47. "Light minutes. It's coming from a small object, possibly a ship." Elena felt the familiar tingle of discovery. In her 3 decades of service, she'd cataloged gas giants, mapped asteroid fields, and even discovered 2 habitable worlds. But finding an alien vessel, that would be a career-defining moment. "Set an intercept course," she ordered, "and wake Dr. Chen. Tell her we might have first contact." The Aurora Dawn's engines hummed to life, propelling the ship toward the unknown signal. As they drew closer, the object resolved on their screens, a sleek vessel unlike anything human engineering had produced. Its hull seemed to shimmer with an opalescent sheen, and strange protrusions suggested technology far beyond Earth's understanding. "Life signs?" Elena asked. "Faint, but present," Torres reported. "The ship's badly damaged. Hull breaches in multiple sections. They're venting atmosphere." Dr. Liang Chen arrived on the bridge, her usually neat appearance disheveled from being roused from sleep. The xenobiologist's eyes widened as she saw the alien craft on the main screen. "My God," she breathed. "It's real." Elena made her decision quickly. "Prepare a boarding team, full environmental suits, armed escort. Dr. Chen, you're with me." Within the hour, Elena led a team of 6 through the Aurora Dawn's airlock. The alien ship's hull was even more magnificent up close, its surface covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the light. They found an emergency access port and managed to interface with it using adaptive protocols. Inside, the ship was a testament to advanced engineering. Corridors curved in ways that defied human spatial reasoning, and the walls pulsed with a soft bioluminescent glow. The team moved cautiously, following the stronger life signs deeper into the vessel. They found the survivors in what appeared to be a command center. 3 beings sat slumped in chairs that seemed molded to their forms. They were tall, perhaps 7 feet, with elongated limbs and skin that had the texture of polished stone. Their faces were vaguely humanoid, but with larger eyes that reflected light like prisms. One of them stirred as the humans entered. Its eyes focused on Elena, and suddenly she heard a voice in her mind, not through her ears, but directly in her thoughts. "You heard our call," the voice said, weak but clear. "We did not think anyone would come." Dr. Chen gasped beside her. Telepathic communication incredible. Elena stepped forward slowly, hands visible and empty. "I am Captain Elena Vasquez of Earth. We're here to help." The alien's crystalline eyes flickered. "Earth? Yes, we know of your world, the Death World. We are Cathani. I am Velthar, what you might call a merchant captain." The being struggled to sit upright. "We fled from them, the Ravagers. They consume all." "The Ravagers?" Elena asked, feeling a chill despite her suit's climate control. Velthar's thoughts carried images. Massive ships black as the void between stars. Worlds stripped bare of life. Entire civilizations reduced to resources. They are collectors, harvesters of sentient species. They take what they need and leave nothing behind. Dr. Chen moved to examine one of the unconscious Cathani. "These injuries, energy weapons?" "Yes," Velthar confirmed. We were traders, carrying goods between the outer colonies. The Ravagers found us. We barely escaped, but our drive is damaged. We sent the distress call knowing no one would dare answer. Elena felt anger building in her chest. The idea of beings who preyed on others, who saw intelligent life as nothing more than resources to be harvested. It went against everything humanity stood for. Why wouldn't anyone answer? She asked. Because the Ravagers mark those who interfere. They return for them. Always. Velthar's mental voice carried deep sorrow. 23 worlds have fallen. The galaxy has learned to hide, to stay silent. Better to let strangers die than risk drawing their attention. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Martinez, Elena's security chief, spoke up. Captain, if these Ravagers are as dangerous as described, shouldn't we consider our own safety? Elena looked at her team, then back at the injured aliens. Humanity had spent centuries wondering if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and with it came a choice that would define their place among the stars. No, Elena said firmly. We don't abandon people in need. That's not who we are. She opened a channel to the Aurora Dawn. Bridge, this is the captain. Prepare the medical bay for 3 patients, and send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them we've made first contact and we have a situation. Over the next few hours, Elena's crew worked to stabilize the Cathani and transfer them to the Aurora Dawn. As Velthar recovered in the medical bay, he shared more information about the Ravager Collective. They are ancient, he explained, his mental voice growing stronger with rest. No one knows where they originated. They appear from dark space, strike without warning, and vanish with their prizes. They view other species as you might view cattle. And no one fights back? Elena asked, incredulous. Some have tried. The Altarians had a fleet of 1,000 ships. The Ravagers destroyed them in a single day. The Zorani were warriors, bred for combat across generations. They lasted 3 days. Velthar's thoughts carried a mix of fear and resignation. Fighting only makes them focus on you faster. Dr. Chen, monitoring the aliens' vital signs, interjected. But surely someone must have found a weakness, some way to resist? No species from the sanctuary worlds has succeeded, Velthar replied. We all evolved on gentle planets where cooperation and harmony allowed civilization to flourish. The Ravagers, they come from somewhere else, somewhere that taught them only conquest. Elena exchanged glances with her officers. Humanity's history was written in conflict and struggle. Earth was no sanctuary world. It was a planet of extremes, where life had to fight for every inch of ground. Velthar, Elena said slowly, you mentioned Earth is known as a death world. What exactly does that mean? The Cathani's eyes widened slightly. Your world. It is legendary among spacefaring species. Extreme gravity, volatile weather, aggressive fauna. Most intelligent life develops on worlds with optimal conditions. Humans evolved surrounded by danger. You adapted to thrive where others would perish. And that makes us different? It makes you survivors. Perhaps. Velthar paused, seeming to consider something. Perhaps it makes you what the galaxy needs. Before Elena could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lieutenant Torres's voice crackled over the comm system. Captain to the bridge. We have incoming vessels. Configuration matches the Ravager description. Elena ran for the bridge, her magnetic boots clanking against the deck. As she burst through the doors, the main view screen showed them. 3 massive ships emerging from hyperspace, their hulls so dark they seemed to absorb light itself. They followed the Cathani's trail, Torres reported, his voice tight with tension. The lead Ravager ship's design was unsettling, organic curves mixed with sharp mechanical edges, as if biology and technology had been forcibly merged. Weapon arrays protruded from its surface like thorns, and strange appendages extended toward the Aurora Dawn. They're scanning us, the communications officer announced. And, Captain, they're sending a message. Let's hear it, Elena ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was unlike anything human. a chorus of tones that seemed to burrow into the mind. Unknown vessel, you harbor prey that belongs to the collective. Surrender them and withdraw. Interference will result in your addition to the harvest. Elena felt her crew's eyes on her. They could run, leave the Cathani to their fate, and hope the Ravagers would let them go. It would be the safe choice, the logical choice. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and opened a return channel. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Aurora Dawn. The beings aboard our vessel are under our protection. Leave this system immediately. Silence stretched for long moments. Then the Ravager's voice returned, carrying what might have been surprise. You would risk harvest for strangers? This is unprecedented. Maybe it's time for something unprecedented, Elena replied. She turned to her weapons officer. Charge all defensive systems, and send an emergency beacon to Earth. Encode everything we've learned about the Ravagers. Priority Alpha. As the Aurora Dawn's weapons powered up, Elena knew they were outmatched. Her single exploration vessel against 3 Ravager warships wasn't a fight, it was a delay tactic at best. But humanity had just learned they weren't alone in the universe and that innocents were being hunted. Sometimes, Elena thought, you had to make a stand, even if you couldn't win. Because some things were worth fighting for, regardless of the odds. The Ravager ships began to advance, their weapons glowing with lethal energy. Elena gripped the arms of her captain's chair, ready to face whatever came next. Humanity's first interstellar conflict was about to begin, when Deathworlds unite. The message from the Aurora Dawn reached Earth in 13 hours, transmitted through quantum relays at faster-than-light speeds. Within minutes of its arrival at Defense Command, the highest levels of Earth's government were assembling for an emergency session. Grand Admiral Chen Wu stood before the United Earth Council, the recording from Captain Vasquez playing on the massive holographic display behind him. The council members, 12 representatives from Earth's major power blocks, watched in silence as the story unfolded. The Aurora Dawn is holding position, Admiral Wu reported as the recording ended. Captain Vasquez is buying us time, but our analysts estimate her ship can survive perhaps 20 minutes of direct combat with the Ravager vessels. President Maria Santos of the Americas Union leaned forward. And these Cathani claim no one has successfully resisted these Ravagers? That's correct, Madam President. However, Wu activated another display. Our xenobiology teams have been analyzing the data. Every species the Ravagers have conquered evolved on what the aliens call sanctuary worlds, planets with ideal conditions for life. Earth, as we've learned, is classified as a death world. Minister Yuki Tanaka from the Pacific Federation spoke up. Meaning we evolved under harsher conditions, higher gravity, extreme weather patterns, aggressive competing species. Our physiology, our psychology, our very approach to survival is fundamentally different. Wu's expression hardened. We might be the first species they've encountered who evolved to be fighters rather than philosophers. The debate that followed was fierce, but brief. Some argued for caution, for protecting Earth above all else. Others pointed out that if humanity stood by while others were hunted, they would deserve the same fate when their turn came. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Admiral Wu, President Santos declared, mobilize the fleet. All of it. If these Ravagers want to hunt the innocent, it's time they learned what humans do to predators. Within hours, Earth's combined military forces were in motion. The home fleet, 127 warships stationed around Earth and its colonies, began emergency deployment preparations. The Mars shipyards, working at maximum capacity, rushed to complete vessels still under construction. Every available pilot, marine, and crew member was recalled to duty. But Admiral Wu knew they needed more than just ships. He needed information. Get me our best tactical analysts, he ordered his staff, and reach out to the Cathani refugee communities. On Luna Station, if we're going to fight these Ravagers, we need to understand them. The moon had become humanity's primary spaceport, and Luna Station housed thousands of refugees from various species who had fled Ravager attacks. Most kept to themselves, too traumatized or hopeless to engage with their human hosts. But news of humanity's decision to fight sparked something in them, a flicker of hope long extinguished. Commander David Park found himself in Luna Station's alien quarter, face to face with a creature that looked like a mass of tentacles surrounding a crystalline core. This was Helix, one of the few surviving Madathi whose homeworld had fallen 3 years ago. "You truly mean to fight them?" Helix's translated voice was barely above a whisper. "We do," Park confirmed. "But we need intelligence. Anything you can tell us about their tactics, their technology, their weaknesses." Helix's tentacles writhed in what Park had learned was equivalent to nervous laughter. "Weaknesses? They have none. They adapt to every strategy, counter every weapon. The alien paused. "But wait. You humans, you think differently. What seems impossible to us might be merely difficult to you." Over the next hours, Park gathered information from a dozen refugee species. A pattern emerged. The Ravagers always followed the same basic strategy. Overwhelm with superior numbers, disable defensive systems, then deploy collection ships to harvest the population. They were methodical, efficient, and utterly without mercy. But they were also predictable. "They've never faced an opponent who thrives on chaos," Park reported to Admiral Wu. "Every species they've conquered fought defensively, trying to protect their worlds. What if we took the fight to them?" Meanwhile, in the Vale Nebula, Captain Vasquez was discovering just how different human combat philosophy could be. The Aurora, Dawn, despite being an exploration vessel, carried weapons because humans never went anywhere unprepared. "Target their sensor arrays," Elena ordered as the first Ravager ship approached. "If they can't see, they can't adapt." The Aurora Dawn's railguns spoke, sending tungsten slugs at significant fractions of light speed toward carefully chosen points on the Ravager vessel. The impacts were devastating, not because they destroyed the ship, but because they blinded it. "They're confused," Torres reported, amazement in his voice. "They expected energy weapons, shields, standard stuff. They didn't expect kinetic weapons at relativistic speeds." Elena smiled grimly. "Sometimes the old ways work best. Ready the nuclear mines." As the Aurora Dawn continued its fighting retreat, it left a trail of small, insignificant-looking objects in its wake. The Ravagers, focused on their prey, ignored them. That was their first mistake. Back on Earth, Admiral Wu stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Terrible Swift Sword as the fleet prepared to jump. 80 ships would go first, the fastest and most heavily armed. The rest would follow in waves. "All ships report ready," his operations officer announced. Wu looked at the stars through the view screen, thinking of Captain Vasquez and her crew holding the line light years away. "Send to all ships. Today, humanity takes its place among the stars. Not as explorers or traders, but as protectors. Jump in 3-2-1. Space twisted around the human fleet as they entered hyperspace. For the first time in their history, humans were going to war beyond their own solar system. In the Vale Nebula, Elena Vasquez felt her ship shudder as another Ravager weapon found its mark. The Aurora Dawn was hurt, bleeding atmosphere from multiple hull breaches, but they had lasted far longer than anyone expected. "Captain?" Dr. Chen's voice came over the comm. "Velthar wants to speak with you." "I'm a little busy, Doctor. He says it's important. Something about the Ravagers' behavior." Elena glanced at her tactical display. They had managed to damage one Ravager ship significantly, but the other two were closing in. "Patch him through." Velthar's mental voice filled her mind. "Captain Vasquez, the Ravagers are confused. They keep trying to predict your actions, but you don't follow any pattern they recognize." "That's because we're not following a pattern," Elena replied, ordering another random course change. "We're making it up as we go." "But that's chaos." "No," Elena corrected. "That's human." The nuclear mines she had deployed earlier chose that moment to detonate. The Ravager ships, having dismissed them as debris, were caught completely off guard. The explosions didn't destroy them, but they added to the confusion, the chaos. Then, Elena's sensors detected something that made her heart leap. Hyperspace signatures. Dozens of them. The human fleet arrived like an avenging storm. 80 warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect attack formation, weapons already locked onto targets. Admiral Wu's voice boomed across all frequencies. Ravager vessels, this is the United Earth Fleet. You are engaged in hostile action against our citizens. Cease your attack immediately or be destroyed. The Ravagers' response was immediate. They turned their weapons toward the new arrivals. Energy beams lanced out toward the human ships and passed harmlessly through empty space. What? Elena began, then understood. The human ships had deployed advanced holographic decoys projecting false positions while the real vessels maneuvered for optimal firing positions. The battle that followed would be studied for generations. The Ravagers fought with cold efficiency, their weapons devastating and their shields nearly impenetrable. But humans fought with something else. Creativity born from millions of years of survival on a hostile world. Where the Ravagers expected shields, humans used armor. Where they expected energy weapons, humans used kinetics. Where they expected predictable tactics, humans gave them chaos. Captain James Havoc Morrison led his fighter squadron in an attack run that defied physics. Using their ship's gravity drives, they created micro-singularities that bent space around them, making them nearly impossible to target. Commander Lisa Stone's destroyer group implemented something called the Wasp Swarm. Hundreds of small drones that attached to Ravager hulls and detonated in sequence, not to destroy but to overload their sensors with data. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships fell, their crews dying heroically. But for every human vessel lost, the Ravagers paid a heavier price. They had never faced an enemy who turned their own advantages against them. As the tide turned, something unexpected happened. Ships began arriving from hyperspace, not human vessels but alien ones. The refugees from Luna Station had spread the word. Species who had hidden for generations emerged to join the fight. Altarian remnants, Sorani warriors, even some Cathani, trading vessels armed with mining lasers. They were not many, and their weapons were often inferior, but their presence meant something greater. The Ravagers were no longer facing just humanity, but a coalition. Velthar, watching from the Aurora Dawn's medical bay, sent his thoughts to Elena. This has never happened before. No one has ever united against them. That's because no one ever showed them it was possible, Elena replied, watching as a formation of human and alien ships executed a coordinated attack. The battle's turning point came when Admiral Wu implemented something called the Sol Protocol. Every human ship simultaneously overloaded their reactors, not to self-destruct, but to create a massive electromagnetic pulse that washed over the battlefield. For the Ravagers, whose technology relied heavily on their neural link control systems, it was devastating. Their coordination shattered, their adaptive systems scrambled, they became vulnerable. All ships pressed the attack, Wu commanded. What followed was not a battle but a rout. The Ravager fleet, so used to being predators, found themselves as prey. They attempted to retreat, to jump to hyperspace, but human interdiction fields trapped them. In the end, only one Ravager ship escaped, heavily damaged and fleeing into the void. Admiral Wu stood on his bridge, looking at the wreckage of what had once been the Ravagers' proud fleet. Around him, crew members were celebrating, but Wu felt only a grim satisfaction. "Send a message to the escaped vessel," he ordered. "Tell them this. The hunt is over. Any further attacks on innocent species will be met with the full might of the United Earth Fleet. We are humanity. We evolved on a death world, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves." The aftermath of the battle reshaped galactic politics overnight. The Cathani established formal diplomatic relations with Earth. Other species, emboldened by humanity's example, began to emerge from hiding. Captain Elena Vasquez, sitting in her damaged but victorious ship, received a message from Velthar. "You have given us something we had lost, Captain. Hope." "We've given you more than that," Elena replied. looking at the mixed fleet of human and alien ships now working together. We've shown the galaxy that predators can become prey, and that sometimes the monsters in the dark should fear what comes from Deathworlds. The Ravager Collective had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. They had never expected to meet a species that didn't just survive hardship, but was forged by it. They had never expected humanity. In the years that followed, the story spread throughout the galaxy. How a single human captain refused to abandon strangers in need. How Earth's children rose to defend the innocent. How the Deathworlders became protectors. And in the darkest corners of space, where predators once hunted freely, new word spread fear among those who would prey on the weak.